Hey everyone, and we are back for the episode 2 serious Q&A. Am I the only one who thinks Dany's being a hypocrite in this episode? I mean, she's allowing Yara to be Queen of the Iron Islands, but she wants Jon, the King in the North, to bend the knee. I mean, she did say the others are free to ask as well when discussing the independence of the other kingdoms in Season 6, Episode 9. I mean, this is a good point, but I don't necessarily think Dany is being a hypocrite. I think there are a few factors at play. The first is what people are bringing to the table. Yara brings ships, which Dany desperately needed at the time. Yes, she got more ships from the Martells and the Tyrells, but when she agreed to Yara's terms, she only had the Yunkai ships and needed those Greyjoy sails. Jon, on the other hand, has perhaps Vale ground forces, but that's it. Dany has plenty of ground forces already. The second thing is what Jon would be asking for compared to Yara. Jon would want 2 whole kingdoms, perhaps half the landmass of the 7 kingdoms. That's a huge loss for Dany. The Iron Islands are a tiny area. Losing them would be nothing. The third thing is position and negotiation. When bargaining, you start higher than what you expect the other person will accept, and you work your way down to an agreement. Dany may be willing to allow some level of autonomy for the North and titles, but she's smart to begin with a less tolerant position. Yara certainly doesn't have complete independence. She had to give up raiding after all. And if you want to get technical, Dany did say that the others are free to ask. She didn't say whether she was actually going to give it to them. Why the hell would Hot Pie call it the Battle of the Bastards? Ramsay had been legitimized, plus the Vale won it. Why wouldn't it be called the Battle of for at Winterfell? This is a Middle Ages culture. It would have been named after where it took place. This is a good point, and it is true that battles in Westeros are almost always named after where they took place. There are a few exceptions, like the Battle of the Three Armies, the Vulture Hunt, the Wailing Willows, and the War for the Dawn. But these are exceptionally rare. That said, we have had 2 battles at Winterfell in a relatively short period of time. So it's perhaps excusable that people wanted a different name for the battle, though I would have expected it to be something like the Battle of the Two Bastards. Next is the issue of credit. Yes, there is a strong argument that the news people should be spreading is that Robin Arryn or Littlefinger or Bronzeon Royce invaded the North and then the Vale Lords defected to Jon. The Vale army has certainly not been given the credit it deserves. However, news and propaganda might be the issue. The ravens coming from Winterfell would be sent by Jon and his maester. He of course is going to claim that he was victorious and certainly not that he bungled the whole thing. The Vale Lords don't necessarily have the ravens to be spreading the truth, and even if they did, do they really want to trash their new king? And then there's the issue of legitimization. So, at least in the book, legitimized bastards are still often degraded as bastards. Daemon Blackfyre, Bittersteel, Adam of Hull, and Ramsay were all called bastards despite being legitimized. Now the reason for this seems to be religious. In the Sworn Sword, we find out that the Faith of the Seven holds that bastards are unloyal and untrustworthy in nature, and this comes from the passion of extramarital sex occurring between the parents. This was a big issue and led to some disliking Adam of Hull and Daemon Blackfyre for this reason. I can only assume that this belief is also prevalent among Northerners, as Lady Dustin disparages Ramsay as a bastard. This is actually a very relevant issue when people argue about the idea that Jon Snow may be secretly legitimized. Many people just simply don't recognize legitimized bastards as legitimate. How come any lords are willing to come to King's Landing to hear Cersei's orders? Imagine if a queen in medieval Europe blew up the Vatican with the Pope inside. She would be absolutely vilified, never mind the fact that she has no blood claim to the Iron Throne. Think about people's reactions to the phrase in the books for perpetuating the Red Wedding. Blowing up the Great Sept of Baelor would be much worse for PR than that, and virtually everyone south of the Neck would want Cersei dead. I mean, this is absolutely true. One argument for Cersei still maintaining power was perhaps that she pulled a burning of the Reichstag and blamed the destruction of the Sept on someone else. Alternatively, she could have claimed that it was an accident. After all, in the books, there was a wildfire cache underneath the Great Sept. She could just say, whoops, it was the Mad King's fault. Not to mention, Cersei still has the old High Septon in a dungeon. She could, hypothetically, pull him out, reinstall him, and try to smooth things over with the faith and the people. But alas, we never see any of this. To make matters worse, Hot Pie seems to imply that it's common knowledge that Cersei blew the Sept up. Sansa up north believes this as well, so there apparently hasn't been any attempts at fooling the people. Now, perhaps there are competing stories out there like there was with the incest, but the show hasn't presented any alternative stories. Now, if I were going to make an argument for why the lords have come to see Cersei, it would be that news of Daenerys came before the summons. The news of dragons, Dothraki, and the Mad King's daughter must put fear in the hearts of these lords, and they are willing to hear Cersei out. Essentially, what I'm saying is the only explanation for any support for Cersei is fear of Daenerys. Melisandre is asked why she thinks Kit Harington is the prince that was promised, or something. She then says that he let the wildlings through the wall. Has Melisandre already forgotten that she resurrected Kit Harington? Wouldn't that be a much more convincing thing to say? I'm actually quite baffled by the lack of mentioning of Jon's resurrection as well. Last season, there was a logical reason for everyone to be following Jon. He returned from the dead, but the show didn't use it. It wasn't mentioned at all when recruiting people to the cause. And there was a logical reason for everyone crowning him king. He returned from the dead, but the show didn't use it. The show could have easily made Jon a religious figure, but they seem to have passed on that, leaving the cult of Jon but one member, Melisandre. Additionally, in the very first episode of the show, it's established that deserters of the Night's Watch are executed. Jon dying is the entire loophole to that. And in our last episode, Melisandre talked seamlessly about Jon going from Lord Commander of the Night's Watch to King in the North. No one called him out about being a Night's Watch deserter. Instead, they just said, swell sounding guy. If I were going to make an argument on why Mel is keeping it a secret, it's that she actually wants Dany to maybe also think she's the princess that was promised. I can't think of any other reason why Mel would be speaking High Valyrian other than to purposely hide the gender of the prophecy. And we've already seen many other Red Priests already say that Daenerys is the savior. We have to keep in mind that Mel's whole shtick the entire show has been trying to convince other people that they're going to save the world. Mentioning Jon's resurrection may have perhaps been too convincing. There is also the weird issue of mentioning that Jon is undead and then asking Dany to come to fight more undead. In fact, no one has brought this up yet. Jon, for some reason, doesn't believe he is like the other whites. He believes he's of the living while they are of the dead. What are the Dothraki's thousands upon thousands of horses eating on Dragonstone? I guess fish? A massive, massive amount of fish? I had thought that the Reach was shipping over food and water, but in the last episode it made it seem like the Reach and Dorne were dependent upon the Greyjoy fleet for their movements, so I don't really know. Though perhaps like any army, maybe there are camp followers, just seaborne camp followers instead. Perhaps various traders think they can make a killing by bringing food and water out to Daenerys. Sam's letter to Jon about the Dragonglass went straight to Winterfell. How did he know Jon is at Winterfell? Last season, the Citadel didn't even know Jon was Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Well, I mean, Jon and Sam are best bros. I'm sure he sent a raven to Sam to let him know that things have changed. And yes, it was absolutely ridiculous that last season the Citadel didn't know Lord Commander Mormont had died. Maester Aemon would have been certain to report on that, so it's just baffling. Clerical error, I guess? Still, even allowing for that, Jon taking the North and two kingdoms going rogue is probably bigger news than the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch dying. Not to mention, Maester Wolcan probably has to right the Citadel to get reassigned to Winterfell from the Dreadfort, and Archmaester Ebrus did say he was chronicling the post-Robert Wars. Do you think D&D will kill off Baelish? I feel they have no idea what to do with him and will get rid of him the same way they did Tommen and Marjorie. Yeah, I would say there's a 95% chance Littlefinger will die this season. The scenes have been really crowded, and the show doesn't really know what to do with Littlefinger's story. His character just seems off and rudderless ever since they went off the book plot. And this is partly because George R.R. Martin has not really revealed what Littlefinger is up to in the book. Does he want power? Does he want revenge? Does he want to fulfill prophecy? Does he want love? Does he have allies? Is he an agent of someone else? We simply don't know. The show has made Littlefinger's quest rather simple. He wants Sansa's love as a replacement for Kat's, and he wants the Iron Throne. I'm not sure how lurking around Winterfell and trying to pin Sansa against Jon achieves this goal. Is Jon keeping the Vale forces in the north and thus Littlefinger needs him removed? Because Sansa makes it sound like Littlefinger could march away with them at any time. Is he waiting for the southern armies to kill each other off before marching the Vale Lords south? I suppose that's a fine plan, but why do the Vale Lords need to be lingering in the north specifically? Why not at home? I suppose he's lingering in the north for Sansa, but Littlefinger has never been afraid to leave Sansa alone. I mean, we're close to a sensible plan at this point, but we're not quite there. And the plan certainly doesn't have the grand cleverness of a Littlefinger plan. This is a man who pinned a dagger on Tyrion. He's a man who stopped a coup from Ned. He convinced Joffrey to execute Ned, and then convinced the Queen of Thorns to kill Joffrey. He took over the gold cloaks, bankrupted the kingdom, and embezzled massive amounts of money. He kidnapped Sansa and perhaps even orchestrated a riot. He tricked a woman into falling in love with him, then murdered her, and took over her kingdom. And now, he just kind of hangs out. I mean, I have no reason why Littlefinger went down to meet Jon in the crypts. What were they doing? Jon was mean to Littlefinger for no reason, and then Littlefinger brings up Cat and Sansa to anger Jon for no reason. It's puzzling. Perhaps the writers have given Littlefinger a plan? But I thought the same thing last season for Cersei, Marjorie, and the High Sparrow. None of them had a plan. I simply don't see this ending on a very satisfying note. Who made the statue of Ned and when? The castle has not been held by people who love Ned for quite some time. Who even knew where the crypts are? So we have a few different issues here. There's Ned's bones, there's Ned's statue, and then there's the location of the crypts. So in the books, the location of the crypts are kind of a secret and not easily found. Only people who have lived in Winterfell for a while really know where the crypts are. Essentially, Theon knows, Big and Little Walder, and then Theon shows Lady Dustin. However, in the show, the crypts aren't a secret at all. Littlefinger just waltzes into the crypts in both the 5th and 7th seasons. Now, about the statue. At least in the book, Ned's statue was begun after Luwin and Bran received word of Ned's death, and the statue was completed before Theon's invasion. In the show, though, we don't see Ned's statue until last episode. If you remember, in Season 5, Sansa visits the crypts, and Ned is nowhere to be seen. So I suppose Ned's statue could have been carved during Bran's time in Winterfell, and we just didn't see it during the Sansa scene, or Jon just had the statue made recently. Now, Ned's bones are another complicated issue. In the show, Cat receives them in Season 2, Episode 4 at Storm's End. The problem is, Cat flees Storm's End in a hurry after the death of Renly, so the bones should have been left behind. Now, perhaps she somehow sent the bones ahead, but the problem is the Ironborn invade Moat Cailin the next episode, and Theon takes Winterfell the episode after that. The only thing that I can come up with that would make sense is that for some reason Cat sent the bones ahead by sea, and they ended up waiting in White Harbor for 4 seasons, and finally just made it to the crypts of Winterfell. Now in the book, Cat does send the bones ahead with a man named Hallis Malin, and she wonders if the bones have made it, but Hallis Malin and the bones just up and disappear. Lady Dustin has the neck watched to make sure the bones are intercepted, but the bones never even make it north. So what happened is a huge mystery. How do you think Jon is going to react to meeting his brother-in-law Tyrion in the next episode, since he's still technically married to Sansa? Well, last episode they did try to have the guys be bros and say nothing but good things about each other. Patricide and breaking Night's Watch vows were just forgotten. The thing about Dragonstone is that it's filled with characters that Jon should have a problem with. Theon invaded Winterfell, Mel burned Shireen, Dany wants him to bend the knee, and Tyrion will be right there in the middle of it. The showrunners seem to love Tyrion and consistently erase and forget about his dark deeds from the books and from the earlier seasons. I imagine Tyrion will be the sensible glue that holds all of the hotheads together. Now, on the question of marriage, the show seems to have different rules from the book when it comes to marriage. In the book, a marriage or even a marriage betrothal is a holy vow. Neither is broken lightly. Keep in mind, Joffrey had the High Septon come in and publicly approve his broken betrothal to Sansa. And we know that the High Septon's approval is a requirement to dissolve an unconsummated marriage. In the show, though, this doesn't seem to be the case. Sansa simply didn't consummate her marriage, therefore she was able to marry Ramsay. And that's all the questions for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.